Hi guys, this is Dr. Sadasivam once again with you, sharing snippets of some important news from within the country and outside. Guys, as I have said earlier, and the cost of repeating it once again, I would like to reiterate that there are hundreds of television channels, YouTube channels, your press media reeling out news upon news upon news. But it's extremely important. We don't have the time to get into, to keep ourselves abreast of every single news. Therefore, our channel is bringing out snippets of very important events happening around the country. We will not be going too deep into these because that takes a very long time, but just important snippets which will be covered in a matter of 10 minutes. That's what I will like to do. And in today's episode, we will be coming across certain important news items, and we will be covering the following topics. We will start with the Indo-US policy on Russia. That's number one. Second, we will talk about how the Indian IT companies have bagged a lion's share of the outsourced contracts in the United States of America. That's approximately 30% of the 33 billion outsourced contracts in the United States. We'll be talking about it. We will be talking about the asset monetization program of Government of India. Extremely important question from the competition point of view, and also we are all corporate executives. We sit with people, we go to clubs, we discuss with people. These are things of an intellectual importance, very, very important. Then we will be talking about India's FDI focus. FDI is foreign development, foreign direct investments. Then we will be talking about an LIC IPO, which is one of the biggest IPOs ever in the history of independent India. We will be talking about 5G spectrum options, India-US joint military drills and cooperation. We'll talk about overall global pessimism, fall in optimism is happening throughout the world. We have been seeing the stock markets falling. We will also be talking about wheat supplies and production in India. Things have taken a big turn nowadays. We will keep ourselves abreast of what is happening on that front, and of course the Sri Lankan crisis. We'll talk a little bit about the German stand towards India, guys. Very interesting. We need to know that. And then of course French elections we'll be talking about. Now, as far as the Indian-US relationships are concerned, US has been sending us a lot of feelers that India has abstained itself from voting in the United Nations. India is indirectly supporting Russia, etc. They've already started sending feelers to us. But it's a matter of fact, India has taken its own stand, because some of the things that India is doing today, it is on much broader national interest, because balance is extremely important. A judicious balance, especially when you frame your policies with respect to superpowers like US and Russia. So on this front, I think India is doing a great job in striking that delicate balance. One thing we need to understand is India's relationship with Russia is totally different from the relationship of EU and US with Russia. We have an extra factor, which is a belligerent enemy country, that is China and Pakistan. So we need to move our coins accordingly, and that's what the Government of India is doing, and the rest we will leave it to the wisdom of the Government of India. Now, you are all aware that India is also working out some kind of a rupee-ruble agreement with Russia. Discounted oil supplies to India, Russia has already offered that, and we will try to see how much of leverage we can take from that. And one thing we all need to understand, that India's consumption, in fact it was indirectly mentioned in one of the meetings, that India purchases in a month what European purchases for a lunch. Very interesting anecdote, and I think it helps to keep that in mind. And as far as the rupee-ruble trade is concerned, it's necessary for us to understand that the ruble has been witnessing a lot of fluctuations. In fact, just after the Ukraine war, after certain sanctions were imposed on Russia, the ruble went as high as 150 rubles for a dollar, right? And then it once again strengthened, came down to 85. rubles per dollar, and with this kind of a volatility, rupee ruble dollar, rupee ruble trade also is not a cakewalk. A lot of thought needs to go into it, and I think government is already doing its job. Now, secondly, one good news for the IT companies in the country are big IT names like your Cognizant, TCS, Infosys, Tech Mahindra, Wipro. These companies have backed more than 33% of the 33 billion, not 33%, I think 31% of the $33 billion of outsourced contracts in the US. Matter of great pride for our country, guys. Okay, now we're going to talk about asset monetization. I've already put up a very detailed video on why asset monetization is important and what kind of a multiplier and accelerator effects it can create on the economy, including definition of all these economic terms. I would like you to go through that video for further information, but in this I will just capture some important snippets. Right, this was launched in August last year, that's 2021. Approximately 96 crores is involved in this program, and lots of investors like your Canadian Pension Fund, Investments Board, Ontario Teachers Plan, a lot of those funds are interested in taking part in this monetization. Other key investors, you might have heard of companies like Fidelity, SBI Mutual Fund, HDFC Mutual Funds, etc. They've all shown interest as far as the asset monetization is concerned. Put up a detail, but broadly what it means is some of the assets of the government of India, they are lying unused. So it's better to monetize them and leverage their potential in terms of money, because it will help us meet some of our fiscal deficit targets. Of course, detailed video is there. I would request you to go through that. So this has an investment potential of more than 9 lakh crores, which is approximately 9 trillion rupees. Guys, please keep in mind, it's not $9 trillion, it is 9 trillion rupees, right? And of course, some meetings are happening between the Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman. I'm sure all of you are aware. But any idea who is the CEO of Niti Aayog? Niti Aayog, very important, Amitabh Kant, an IAS officer, one of the top class IAS officers. So there was a meeting between them in terms of how the whole asset monetization program can be taken forward. Of course, a lot of sectors are involved in it. You have the road sector, etc., where they have already monetized to the level of more than 23,000 crores, guys. And then you have the power sector, somewhere around 10,000 crores, coal mining 40,000 crores, minerals, etc., some 700 crores or something like that. So when you talk about the asset monetization in the road sector, it includes somewhere around 400 kilometers of TOT. TOT means, please remember that, it is toll, operate and transfer mode. Very, very important. Then of course, in the power sector, you have things like transmission assets of our power grid, one operational idle project of NHPCs already under in the block, 24 coal blocks, etc., etc. Although 31 mineral blocks also have been identified for this asset monetization. So which means between 2022 and 2025, we can hope that we can target somewhere around 6 lakh crores, which is $6 trillion. These figures are very, very important. Next comes the textile exports, matter of great pride. Any idea who is the textile minister? It is Piyush Goyal, guys. And he's already started, he's a visionary guy, Piyush Goyal, right? He talks about what can be done from our side to have zero duty access to the markets in Europe, Canada, United Kingdom, and of course including the GCC. GCC is your Gulf Cooperation Council, where you have countries like Oman, Dubai, Bahrain, Qatar, etc., etc. So now his focus is to promote cotton production, right? If you look at cotton production of India, in India it is approximately 500 kilogram per hectare, which is absolutely not in the world standard. It's just half of the world's average. So I think government needs to take steps, and I think he's already doing that with a view to achieve $100 billion of textile exports by 2030. That's the kind of vision these people have, right? And with our own existing indigenous technology, it's not possible. Atmanirbhar is important, but certain places it is mandatory, it is imperative that we bring in foreign technology, because in the long run we will be able to up our productivity, and then we will be able to meet our targets. Remember these targets, guys. $100 billion textile exports by 2030. In fact, Bangladesh has done a great job in this. Your Bangladesh, your Taiwan, your Indonesia, they are all doing so well in the textile exports. India has always been a textile market. Now it's high time we once again get back to that old legacy. Now we're going to talk about FDI, which is foreign direct investments. Now India once again is becoming a magnet for foreign direct investments. China plus one, we have always talked about that strategy. We've put in a separate video also on that. And one very important person is John Graham, and he is the CEO of the Canadian Pension Fund. Remember when we were talking about this asset monetization program, we talked about Canadian funds? Yes. This is a very, very important, very powerful fund house, and they manage more than $500 billion in assets worldwide, right? Out of which only 3% is deployed in India today, but they have shown interest. This 3%, we don't know how much it might go up, maybe 10%, 15%, 20%, so which will make India one of the strongest and most powerful FDI designations in the world. Now comes the next important news, which is the LIC IPO. Extremely important. It was expected to be launched in March, but it got delayed because of volatility or Ukraine war and host of other things. It will approximately be for 65,000 crores. Please remember that. And of course, some results will be done. They're doing some data crunching. A revised public offer document will probably come anytime soon. Road shows will start over a period of time. So by all accounts, it's hoped that it will come by this month end itself. But once it comes, it will be one of the biggest IPOs in the country, right? And of course, I think currently they have sent it to the regulators for approval, and the draft, the red herring prospects and all that is being proposed. And remember, 5% dilution will happen. How much? 5% dilution. And if the response is good, the government might also think in terms of increasing by another 2%, making it 7%. Now comes the 5G pricing. There is so much in the news. So when you talk about 5G pricing, guys, you should know one very important person. Any idea who is the TRAI chairman? He is P.D. Waghela. Very, very important, guys, from the competition perspective. Now the government has reduced the rates, 36% reduction has been given, but there are a lot of people in the telecom industry who feel that the prices of high, of course telecom companies will say that because everyone wants at the lowest price. Okay, those discussions will keep continuing. So one broad objective of doing this is to allow private enterprises to directly buy spectrum from the government of India. That will lead to better spectrum utilization. There's something called as Industry 4 that is coming up, very, very important. I will be putting up a separate video on what is Industry 4, very, very important from the competition point of view, and even for corporate executives who are watching this video for improving their general awareness. Industry 4 is extremely important. Now, when you talk about two big players, which is Jio and Airtel, it is expected that both of them will be buying spectrum worth maybe 50,000 crores. Maybe your Vodafone also might buy some spectrum. People are hoping that they might buy some 10,000 crores or something like that. So mostly, if you look at the spectrums, it is always done in GHz, gigahertz, which is one of the most important ones, which is 3.3 to 3.5 bandwidth. Okay, that will be done, and the second one that will be auctioned is in the 24 to 25 gigahertz. Of course, these are technical things, I don't want to go too much into it, but for general understanding, you can talk about two different bandwidths which will be used for different functions, and the government hopes to mop up approximately 1,16,000 crores over, not immediately, but over a period of time they would be able to do that. They had already, as we have talked about, they have slashed the base rates, by nearly 36%. We've already talked about some 317 crores per unit. And as far as the other wavelength, which is 24 to 28 is concerned, that will be 7 crore per unit. These are technical things, we will not go too deep into it. And Jio, Airtel, Vodafone, they've already conducted trials and they are ready with the launch, but only if the rates are favorable. They will keep doing all these things just to extract as much pound of flesh from the government of India as possible. They will do that. And all that is expected to catapult the economy. Well, typically when you talk about economy, because it is in the government of India's interest that it is being done, because these things will lead to a much better IoT, which is Internet of Things. I will be putting up a separate video on what it is, talking about digital India and all that. But on the other hand, IoT is also important. So this will, address a lot of things. Your low latency, high speed networks will carry communication between machines on a scale unimaginable in the past. So that will be the speed of communication, and to make that possible, your spectrum, your bandwidth, all that is extremely important. And the transformative capacity of this in growing our economy, we have a target of achieving $5 trillion economy maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, and this will go a very, very long way in achieving that. So I think the government and the regulators should sit together and ensure that this is made possible, because by 2025 we are talking of a $5 trillion economy, out of which $1 trillion will be a digital economy, guys. We're not talking about 50 years later, we're talking about 2025. We are in 2022 now. 2025 is not very far off, right? But of course there are certain security concerns as far as China is concerned, but we will address that. This is as far as the 5G spectrum is concerned. Now as far as US India is concerned, we said that there has been a little bit of strain between US and India, especially because of the stand we have taken with respect to Russia, but fine. Certain the points of disagreements will always be there, but now we are going to talk about points of agreements, right? Both US and India, they have agreed to set up defense cooperation. In what? In your space, artificial intelligence, your cyber security. Rajnath, defense minister, had recently been to United States and is had discussions with top level officials in the US government, and especially with China having a lot of focus in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean in the recent years. These things are extremely important. And Chinese ships are patrolling everywhere, warships for anti-piracy mission, and patrols in Gulf of Aden, etc. They are doing all that, and we are all aware that it has come out in the news also, Chinese nuclear submarines may be in operation in the Indian Ocean, nobody knows. So with this in the background, India is looking at lots and lots of areas where there can be a maritime cooperation with the United States of America. Underwater domain is important. Your MRO maintenance of US ships will take place in India. I've already put up a video on this. Overall facilities will be set up in India to overall US warships. Please remember, there's a command which is called as a US Maritime Sea Life Command, is that particular command we are talking about. Right, global fall in optimism, we've already talked about it. The global optimism is at an all-time low. We're talking of all the positive things, but we also need to keep in mind some of the negative news. The financial market are all-time low. People are not very optimistic, especially as far as the stock markets are concerned. Interest rates are going up, the commodity prices are going up, US Fed is increasing its interest rates. So with all this, people are not very optimistic, especially as far as the stock market is concerned. Now we are going to talk about wheat supplies, guys. Now India is going to supply wheat to the whole world, but there are some restrictions from the World Trade Organization. There's something called as an anti-dumping. We will be putting up a separate video because we don't have time to cover in depth. We will be taking a snapshot of all the important news. And the food stocks throughout the world has gone down because of the war, and whenever stocks go down, the prices go up. Now please remember, the government of India, we provide ration to more than 80 crore people for over 2 years since the start of COVID. Look at the planning behind this. A lot of people ask, what has the government done? Look at this, guys. 80 crore people, they are given wheat, right? The whole world is surprised, right? So everywhere in the world food stocks, but India has adequate buffer stocks. Today we were talking of exports of more than 12 million tons of wheat in the coming days. Right, to Egypt alone we will be sending around 3 million tons. We are sending wheat to Sri Lanka, we had sent wheat to Afghanistan. Every country which is in need we are sending wheat to. So India is not a getting country, India has become a giving country. Yesterday we talked about the fact that India is not a buyer's navy, India is a builder's navy. Please watch that news, very, very important. So now with the US, we're talking about cooperation with the US, lots of things are happening. Your cyber security, your artificial intelligence, counter drone technologies, stepped up military, all of that is happening. So if you have 10 list of issues, it's not necessary that we have to agree with US on all. There will be areas of disagreement, they will continue, they will be debated, they will be discussed, but at the same time, wherever we will be able to hit a common ground, we should do that, and that's where space to underwater ties we are talking about, defense technology, buyer-seller relationship, all that is happening now. Okay, now next is the Sri Lankan crisis. Sri Lankan crisis, one of the biggest crises ever in the world. Some of the things that are happening is Sri Lanka needs more than $7 billion just service their debts, and the guys do not have money. Now India is also thinking in terms of helping them. There is there are long queues for your fuel, for cooking gas, for kerosene, for vegetables, etc. People say it's one of the worst crises in the last 70 years. In fact, Moody has revised the forecast for the forex, total forex of Sri Lanka is around $2 billion complete. Now India is also thinking in terms of helping them with maybe $2 billion or so. Chinese had committed 4 lakhs, but now they are having second thoughts in terms of how that money can be disbursed to them. Now next important things, India-Germany relationship. I think we are slightly short out of time, but that's fine. India may be dropped from the invitee list from Germany, right, for the G7 conference. Anyway, they are free to invite whoever they want. They are inviting your Senegal, South Africa, Indonesia as guests. So we need to see, because Germany also seems to have taken this things little seriously, but India will continue to buy Russian oil as long as it is bought on big discounts, because our future, India's future is what is, energy security is what is important for us. And we've already talked about the French elections, fought between 2 important people. Remember this, very important current news. One is Marine Le Pen, and of course we have Emmanuel Macron. Remember who was before Emmanuel Macron? It was Nicolas Sarkozy. And who is Sarkozy supporting? Sarkozy is supporting Macron. Okay guys, and this is Dr. Sadasivam once again with you, and once again at the cost of repeating it, let me tell you that there are hundreds of channels broadcasting, telecasting news 24 hours a day. It's not possible for us to keep track of every single news item. And sometimes what happens is people take up one specific news and they go too deep into it. And in the process what happens, you get to know 1 or 2 news, but you leave out on all the other important news of national and international importance. So one of our endeavor is to give you snapshot of the most important news happening. And this is a small effort towards that direction. I hope you enjoyed this video, and this is Dr. Sadasivam signing off till we meet again. Bye bye. Jai Hind.